I am not out to disrupt the NRL. With those 8 words, Mike Tindall, the World Cup winner and royal-in-law turned R360 mastermind, set off a firestorm that has sent shockwaves from the boardrooms of Sydney to the training grounds of Queensland. For months, the rumours of a British-led raid on rugby league's most elite talent pool were treated as whispers or idle threats, but the silence has finally been broken with a statement that is as calculated as it is terrifying for NRL traditionalists. Tindall isn't just looking for players, he is spearheading a venture that could fundamentally shift the global power balance of contact sports. The air is thick with a heavy stillness because while he claims he isn't there to tear the house down, the sheer scale of the financial backing behind R360 suggests that the foundations are already beginning to crack. It is a moment of pure realization for the league. The predator isn't at the gates, he's already in the living room, and he's brought a checkbook that the salary cap can't easily defend against. Subscribe to all sports updates for the fastest breaks in the game. The crux of the controversy lies in the poaching narrative that has dominated the headlines, but Tindall's defense centers on a concept of professional evolution rather than institutional theft. He argues that R360 is providing a pathway for athletes to maximize their value in a global market, yet the timing of this outreach coincides with a period where the NRL is desperate to retain its status as the premier rugby code globally. When Tindall speaks of non-disruption, he is masking the reality of a talent drain that could see the sport's biggest stars trading the Friday night lights of Suncorp Stadium for the glitz of international ventures. The surprise for many insiders was the sheer boldness of his admission. Most expected a denial, but instead, they got a manifesto. This isn't a shadowy figure operating in the dark, this is a high-profile sporting icon standing in the light, daring the NRL to provide a better alternative for its own players. The story takes a sharper turn when you consider the personal stakes for the players involved, caught between loyalty to their clubs and the life-changing figures being tossed around by the R360 group. We are seeing a shift where the player becomes the brand, and Tindall is merely the architect of that liberation. However, the blowback from Australian coaches has been nothing short of vitriolic, viewing this as a parasitic move designed to bleed the NRL dry of its youth and vitality. Tindall's calm demeanor in the face of this hostility only adds to the gravity of the situation, suggesting he knows something the rest of the rugby world doesn't. He isn't just looking at the next season, he is looking at the next decade of how professional athletes are managed, sold, and showcased. The raid isn't a single event, it's the first domino in a sequence that might leave the traditional league structure looking like a relic of the past. All sports updates. Wait, the plot thickens even further when you realize that Tindall's silence breaking wasn't a defensive crouch, but a strategic offensive. By addressing the poaching claims head-on, he has effectively neutralized the villain narrative and replaced it with one of innovation. He speaks of synergy and opportunity, but the underlying threat remains: if the NRL doesn't adapt its financial structure, R360 will do it for them. The surprise element here is the sheer level of interest from top-tier NRL stars who were previously thought to be untouchable. It turns out that everyone has a price, and when a figure like Tindall, who understands the pressures of both the pitch and the public eye, comes calling, the phone gets answered. The league is now in a frantic state of damage control, trying to convince its stars that the grass isn't greener on the other side of the R360 fence. The pressure is mounting on NRL CEO Andrew Abdo and the ARLC to respond with more than just rhetoric. While Tindall plays the role of the misunderstood pioneer, the reality on the ground is one of high-stakes negotiation and backroom deals. The storytelling here isn't just about sport, it's about a corporate takeover of human capital. Every time a player mentions exploring options, the R360 shadow grows longer over the Australian landscape. The genius of Tindall's move was waiting for the peak of the poaching hysteria to speak, ensuring his words carried the maximum weight possible. He didn't just break his silence, he shattered the illusion of safety that the NRL has enjoyed for years. This is a game of chess played at 100 miles per hour, where the pieces are the most gifted athletes on the planet. What makes this situation truly unprecedented is the intersection of celebrity, royalty, and raw athletic power. Tindall isn't just a former rugby union captain, he is a man with a global platform that transcends the sport itself. This gives R360 a level of prestige that other rebelled leagues or agencies have lacked in the past. When he says he isn't out to disrupt, he is speaking in the language of a diplomat, but his actions are those of a disruptor. The shock for the NRL fan base is seeing their heroes potentially being ushered away by a man who represents the very establishment they often find themselves at odds with. The narrative has shifted from "will they leave" to "how many will he take," and the answer could determine the quality of the competition for years to come. As the dust begins to settle on his initial comments, the focus shifts to the specific players targeted in this so-called raid. The names being whispered in the corridors of power are the very ones that sell jerseys and fill stadiums. Tindall's strategy seems to be targeting the influencers of the league, the players whose departure would trigger a mass exodus. It is a brilliant, if ruthless, approach to market entry. The friction between the R360 camp and the NRL headquarters is palpable, with both sides preparing for a long drawn-out conflict. This isn't just about a few contracts, it's about the soul of the game and who gets to decide its future. Tindall has thrown down the gauntlet, and he did so with a smile on his face and a royal pedigree behind him. The ripple effect of this silence breaking is already being felt in the betting markets and the media cycles. Analysts are scrambling to figure out the true valuation of R360 and how much disruption they can actually afford. If Tindall is to be believed, this is a collaborative effort, but the NRL is treating it like a declaration of war. The surprise isn't that someone tried to poach NRL players, the surprise is that someone finally had the audacity to admit it and frame it as a benefit to the sport. The storytelling of the underdog NRL fighting off the big bad R360 is being flipped on its head by Tindall's charm offensive. He is presenting a future that is sleek, global, and incredibly lucrative, making the traditional league structure look stagnant by comparison. In the final analysis, Mike Tindall's R360 venture represents the ultimate test for the NRL's resilience. Whether it's a raid or a recruitment drive is a matter of perspective, but the impact is undeniable. The silence has been broken, the cards are on the table, and the game has changed forever. As fans, we are left to watch the fallout of a move that could either elevate the sport to new heights or leave the domestic competition gutted of its greatest treasures. One thing is certain, Tindall isn't going anywhere, and the NRL is now on notice. The raid has begun, and the man at the helm is just getting started. All sports updates. Subscribe now so you never miss a beat on the R360 saga. Would you like me to create a follow-up script focusing on the specific NRL stars like Colin Ponga or Roger Tuivasa-Sheck who are currently in Tindall's sights?